The Depth to Delve Deep by Rote Writer. Chapter 53 Old Sarum and Salisbury. Rote's always amazed by the cheap coach fares. He returns to London and arrives early in the evening. He enters Victoria coach station, brandishing his bags like beasts of burden. He looks around for fares and fees west to Salisbury and such. After counting his British bullion, he sees he has enough for the countryside coach. It'll be leaving the following day. Rote rubs his head after recounting his coins. He concludes he can pay for a one-night stay at the Aaron House Hotel on Gower Street. But wait, upon closer inspection, he realizes he'll be short 40 pence. He'll have to shortchange the place that has provided him with affordable accommodation every time he's arrived in London. The new person working at the desk doesn't know or recognize Rote. She reels when she realizes she's been shortchanged 40 pence. By the time she notices, he's already downstairs, safely in his dorm, once again alone, anxiously awaiting the morning to come so he can gorge gratuitously on the serve yourself buffet breakfast, ravenously repeating his eating. Dawned and dined, he leaves a wake of empty plates and glasses after gorging gastronomically on bacon, eggs, sausages, French toast, whatever else simmers in the hot plates. He makes sure to leave early enough to avoid the chance encounter of reacquainting with the manager or owner of the house, who will certainly deem him destitute, intrinsic upon his inability to pay the balance. From there it's back to Victoria Coach Station. Rote boards a bus traveling south-central England, wayward west country, through Wiltshire County, into Salisbury proper. After paying the one-way fare with what he has left, he leaves feeling anew, afresh, and again, without a work permit, or any possibility of gaining government gratuities. The words so many monks make as their mantra is the hymn Rote hears when he thinks, hmm. As the coach carries him into Salisbury, he steps off with his two very heavy blue bulging bags bracing for the long haul. Rote recalls what he's seen through the coach window on his way into Salisbury, Old Sarum. An old hill fort where the former Salisbury stood, overlooking Salisbury Plain, steeped in story and past glory. A suitable spot to sleep for the night. A hedgerow hideaway hunkered just below the hill. He figures that's as good as it's going to get. Bags in tow, he flags a bus, not wanting to walk back more than a mile incline to where he's to set up something, more or less nothing. Rote still full from early morning feast, he decides after holding onto a pound coin like an ace up his sleeve to pay the fare for a short bus ride back up the hill to Old Sarum. Off the bus 5 minutes later, he eyes his future digs across the road. An open field lined with a hedgerow. Though that can wait, he'll stay true to his tourist entrapments as he walks up to the old hill fort. He may have skipped the long walk up from the Salisbury proper to Old Sarum. However, the steep, long, winding road up to the mount reluctantly reimburses him. By the time he comes to the catwalk spanning a deep ditch drop connecting the historical hill with the parking lot, his arms and back are bothering him. Humph! Bothersome blue bastards. He checks his pockets, but realizes if there's a fee to enter, it'll have to be negotiated. Across the bridge he goes, leaving his bags in the small trailer, tallying the tickets. He swooned and swayed them enough to see Old Sarum. Old Sarum sinks like a concave, round earthen mound rising high above the Salisbury Plain ends proper. It's rimmed with ruined ramparts and remnants from former foundations. The first Salisbury Cathedral. Rote stands in its dipped center with arms wide open. He turns around and is found by the grandeur of the ground. He circles the raised rimmed remains of the ramparts. It's all now part of the past cast as a Norman palisade. He parades around the parapet path encircling the site. Ah, the old hill fort, since prehistoric times, has housed humans in some form or another. It stands not only as a focal point for foragers, hunters, and gatherers, but perchance Picts, Celts, and Christians, who come under many flags, banners, and ensigns, Anglos and Saxons, the Vikings, Normans, and Romans, all add to the fount, source, and soul of Old Sarum. Rote will read Sarum by Edward Rutherford. Rote hails in all the history, to be part of the past, no matter how insignificantly subjected. It still sends shivers up and down his body. He's again acclaimed yet another hill. He leaves the hill to head down below by the hedgerow with bags in tow to a burrow to be in the shadow of Old Sarum. He stands for a moment held by his handmaidens, and they are both blue in the face and bothersome in nature. He cuts across the catwalk, through the parking lot, and down a path along a private lane, paralleled by the ever-present pasturage. Back to the street across from where he steps off the bus. He stops short of crossing. Rope backtracks by the shadow of Old Sarum, cutting through the field forming part of the park and pastoral land, holding the heights of the hill fort, to where a park bench leans almost in support against the hedgerow, lining the park. It partitions the pastures and paths. It's his beacon, for below and behind in the bushes bivouacked he will be. Rote regroups. He sits on the bench to catch his breath. It takes a second to scope out the scenario. He doesn't really want to alert anyone to his new burrow in the bushes. He waits until dusk before covertly crawling on his hands and knees through the shadowy shrub directly behind the bench. He sneaks silently into the shrubbery like a dog sniffing for a survivor. He's searching for a suitable spot on his hands and knees. His face is flushed with the brazen brush. Bushwhacked, rocked, and rooted by the rut. After a few minutes, he finally decides on a spot. It's settled by a nonsensical chime rhyming in his mind. If I can't see them, then they can't see me. Rhodes now resigned with his place of residence. He's undeterred by the confined nature of his hidey hole and its unruly floor plan. He takes out his brand new sleeping bag for the first time as if it's the cat's meow. Wow. He then pulls out his big, bright plastic orange bag. He lays the plastic on the ground. It's crumpled and contoured. By the roots and rocks. His earthen bed slopes. He burrows the blue bags behind his cubbyhole, further removed in hopes that in the morning his two blue bulging bags can be left while he ventures out for the day where he may, though only after rolling up his roll and wrapping his wrap. all tuckered out and unbelievably tired. Stress. He unzips the sleeping bag and slips inside. He's inside his sleeping bag, fully clothed save for his shabby shoes. They're wholly beyond repair. He curls up tight for the night. It's a bit cold and damp, so not bad as of yet. He looks through the porous hedgerow for at least one star to think. Rote awakes in the morning, cold and damp and wet. The dog is sniffing his face, not wanting the dog's owner to see his shame. He desperately tries to shoo the shamelessly amiable pooch away, to no avail. Can't the creature get that? Gee! The canine sniffs and snorts with his snout, in and out of his shoes, dog-eared. Rote can hear the dog owner's call come closer and closer. The person draws nearer and nearer. With each step forward, a shadow fronts the form of the morning sun. Rote can see somewhat clearly through the thicket and stops short of panicking. Rote's still ringing with the reciprocal nonsensical singing the night before. If I can't see out, then they can't see in. The dog, ever a friend, picks up the panic and makes like the wind when Rote reaches over and spooks him out. Now on a run, the rover returns happily with no words. Rote sees more dogs and pet owners milling about in the distance. He quickly rolls up his bivouac and bags it. He burrows both of his blue bulging bags further into the thicket and waits. He'll make sure no one is near enough to know the difference, if he's sitting on the bench for 5 seconds or 5 hours. He slips through the hedgerow and in no time is seen sitting on the bench, surprised by it all. In the shadow of old Sarum he sits. Salisbury is in sight. It slopes slowly from the old to the new. Now hungry and not too sure what to do about the brew, he concludes. I can live with the hunger for a bit, but the thirst I can't. He finds a thrown water bottle and heads into town. A road sloping to Salisbury. Just short of the town, he passes by a park and spots a fountain. He doesn't think, he just drinks with thirsty urgency. He rinses, then fills up his bottle. Rote returns to his hideaway without even venturing into the town proper. He's pickled by the predicament. He's embarrassed. His pride is really riding him. He's unable to make eye contact with people passing by. Back at the bench, he crawls back into the bushes. When no one's looking, he pulls out his orange plastic bag and his basically brand new sleeping bag that after last night looks old. It's not even midday yet. He doesn't want anyone to see him. He has no money. He has no food. He has water. He has a briar bush for a home. It's wet and always leaking. It's infested with all sorts of crawling things, and if there's garbage strewn here and there, some of it is blown in and then torn by dogs. He's fraught with the facts. He's fucked. That afternoon and night, he stays burrowed in his vein, going insane, wrestling with his dilemma. He's haunted and daunted by his hunger. He tries to ignore his starving stomach. He tries to hide his pride. The following morning he awakes slobbered with saliva, washed with froth from another friendly face, truly a restoring grace. Those dogs delight him in their exuberance upon discovering a bushwhack bum. I, a found friend, wagging him well with a non-judgmental manner. It means a whole lot. They, in their way, help to raise Rote's spirit by letting him know it's okay to keep his chin up. Upon packing his pack with his makeshift shack, he burrows them back away and begins his day. Out from behind his bespoking bench, he crosses the park. Onto the road he strolls, stirring up a sense of purpose to feed his belly and starve his pride. His pride is like a life preserver. It will buoy him back on track. He passes through the subterranean pedestrian passage, under the roundabout of traffic alongside the Avon River. He continues along the road now into Salisbury proper, only to be stopped by his pride. A pill still too ill to swallow. He returns to wallow back in his burrow with a deep furrow. He struggles with it all. Oh, his pride. As the day turns to night, he struggles some more. Unable to sleep, racked with a rancor for the heel he has to hollow. As the sun rises, so his spirits, and by the lavish licking he surrenders to, it brings a smile to his face. Hunger soon supersedes all qualms with his pride. He proceeds to Salisbury proper. He struggled enough and to no end, and with the thought and the need thereof of begging. And boy, is it a proud pill to swallow. It's in his best interest. At that point, he doesn't see any other way of collecting coins to curb his hunger pangs and his tobacco withdrawals. Great motivating factors for sure. He's desperate. He's defiantly delayed any render to surrender that in turn will chide his pride. He tries to fend the facts, but faced with them, there really is no other possible play. He's forced to say, "Excuse me, but can you spare some change?" He heads down the 2 mile stretch and into Salisbury proper, along the assumed Avon River by some cobbled streets, and through the old stone arch gate giving way to the cathedral's close. Rote finds himself at the entrance to one of England's first cathedrals, albeit buttressed. He learns Salisbury Cathedral's construction starts during medieval times. It's been standing still for centuries with a spire yet to be topped. The outside structure has undergone some renovation. It kind of clashes with the structure's older sections still standing. Rote marvels over the magnificent masonry to be seen of various religious icons hewn out of the alcove each one holds. He hears how even now the coffer offers to market their so-called saints. Inside Salisbury Cathedral, Rote quickly bypasses the table where tourists pay to enter. He doesn't want to miss a chance to see the cathedral just because he can't cover the cost. He spends an hour or so inside before noticing all the little envelopes strategically placed for donations. He thinks if anyone can use a donation, it is he. Rote walks impiously into the private part of the church rectory reserved for rectors. There he asks everyone as they come and go and cluster, "Can you spare some change, please?" Stunned, startled, and shocked to say the least, as he vexes the vicars, perplexes the parsons, while admonishing a minister into administering a meal ticket worth £2 so he can eat. But that's not enough, for he's just broken through a brave barrier so boldly fought with woe his whole life. Pride, and it's hurting him like hell. He wants to hurt back. He begs vigorously, and by the time he leaves the cathedral enclosure, he has £3, hard fought and painfully parted from pious parsons, virtuous vicars, and a moral minister, to be sure. Now outside and on a roll, he plunks himself proudly, not really. He surely sits in spite. He begins to beg 1 pence, 2 pence, 5 pence, 10 pence, 20 pence, 50 pence, £1, no pound notes. Nonetheless, he has a handful of coins. He's happy in the easy way it all of a sudden catches on, though only to be abruptly interrupted. Undone by the peeved, pious prigs, he pilfers. They send a security guard upon him. The security guard is friendly enough when he explains to the beggar that it's forbidden to beg within the cathedral close. No doubt a very old dictate. Beggars and bums back in time are seen as scourge. Rote senses the same vein. Outside and down the lane lining the immediate close surrounding Salisbury Cathedral, the pauper parks his caboose and begins once more collecting a small amount of coin count. Again, the security guard comes by a few minutes later, letting him know the close includes the outer perimeter as well. Rote can see a very visible circumference of the buildings enclosing the cathedral like a compound, or close, another meaning behind a learned word. The guard is friendly enough. Thereafter, the tinker takes no offense to the constant prodding to remove the scourge completely from the sacrosanct Salisbury Cathedral grounds. Now just outside the original 700-year-old stone archway by the same route he passes through on his way in, Rote sits on a stoop in front of a closed store, for it's a Sunday, and proceeds to beg some more. By the end of the afternoon, he's rolling in dough. He has enough for tobacco and papers. A pouch will last him a week, if not longer. He'll buy a bag of granola and a few chocolate bars as well. He's set with some change to spare. On the way back to his hedge hideaway, he makes sure to stop in the diner to redeem his coupon. He served up his free meal bartered earlier like a barrister. A sausage split in half, atop 2 slices of white bread, served as a sandwich, with a small foam cup filled with a diluted orange-like drink, detailed and down in seconds. Back to his homely hole with all his winnings spent on smokes and sustenance, save for some pence, he rolls out his bedroll and thinks, well, okay, it's not exactly how I saw myself overseas, but I'm here now and might as well make the best of it. It's still light out, yet he's huddled his hurry away for a while in his hidey hole. He thinks, I'd like to sneak into Old Sarum to sort of survey my situation with a little more manner. I need to see as much as I can by whatever means, no matter how meager and mangy they seem to be. For a second time he sees Old Sarum, though this time he's coming from a much closer location. He leaves later that afternoon. He knows the hours of the site. He'll be able to sneak in after hours. Out of his hidey hole from the back entrance leads the path up and around the monumental mound. He hops over the locked gate, guarding the span, bridging the gap, suspended over the waterless moat surrounding the earthwork. Once inside the center of the concave circular mound settled in Stone Age, an invisible choir chimes. Rode imagines Gabriel blowing his horn as he hums Peter Gabriel's song, Salisbury Hill. From where he can see the city lights, surrounded by sights, he serenades himself with the soothing sounds upon the earthen mound. Rote remembers the old Sarum ley line layout. He learns all about them during his time in Edinburgh. The ley line he's on, like others, dissects England into sections. In the center of the circle, he can see the spire of Salisbury Cathedral some miles down in the distance. He knows this line is perfectly aligned with Stonehenge and a few other barrows and powerful points of interest, all aligned along the same ley line, and adding to the linear nature of ley lines many churches, cathedrals are constructed on them, and a nature of ley lines many churches and cathedrals are constructed on them. It makes these geographical alignments all the more real. The stars shining brightly through the night, the tried, tested, and true feels one with all as he lies along the ley line. He is gowned in grass, comfortably calmed in the concave center of the concentric circle, wondering wistfully. Rote returns in rope fashion over the span of the bridge. He hops over the high gate, barring all except those in vogue. He heads back to his hedgerow hideaway where hundreds of hoppers hunker. Secure in shroud, he wonders where from here. The promised land. Avalon.